Well, we started talking about the possibility of this new stadium for the White Sox last episode, and it's really starting to gain a lot of traction.
Legitimacy with the Chicago
Yes,
Sun-Times actually reporting they're in serious talks with the city.
yeah, they're in serious talks with the city. Now renderings have been released. I was a little disappointed. It isn't. It is not a retractable dome as some of the original leaked stories had it.
Okay, yeah, you and I were partying in Chicago out in the suburbs a couple weekends ago, and you and I were talking about that. I had not seen anything about the retractable roof aspect of it, but I
Yeah,
guess the earlier ones had shown it, but I didn't see
yeah,
those. So
but
that's off the table, or who
that
knows
well,
right
who
now?
knows if it's
We're
really
years.
it's a rendering that the development company did for them. A
I
lot,
love renderings though.
where yeah, when you look at it, there's the rendering for the White Sox, and um then there's a rendering for like museum that they pitched going there. So this development company's pitched other people besides the White Sox.
Well, it's like the last. This is the 78 is the area,
Yes,
undeveloped area in the South Loop. What is
60
it?
acres.
Yeah, it's at Roosevelt and Clark.
Yeah.
It's literally the last piece of Chicago that's been undeveloped. It's had a weird history that the whole city could develop around it over 200 years, and this remains grass and dirt right next to the river. I think there's been some weird ownership of that real estate. There's been some shady ownership, international ownership that ran into legal issues several times when different deals were supposedly struck and then fell apart. So I think we're a long ways from the finish line, but it sounds like the city wants this to happen. I
We know Rob Manfred wants it to happen.
Yes, he had comments about that this week, didn't he?
Yeah, he had comments about it this week because he's behind it 100%. Because I'm glad you're sitting down for this. Jerry Reinsdorf has assured him that it will not be tax dollar funded.
That's I saw that, and that's of course misleading because it's no additional taxes is what they're saying. Actually, they're not going to add taxes. The current taxes that Chicagoans, Illinoisans are paying for Sox Park 2.0 are just going to continue. It's not at all citizens either. It's like a hotel tax. They're trying to get tourist dollars to help pay for it, but
Well,
that's
yeah,
the same deal that paid for the current Sox Park. So
yeah.
as
I
I
also,
understand it,
I also think part of it too, like when you see the rendering, I mean, it's going to be a destination. I mean,
well,
it, it, it totally flips the script on what the White Sox have been um,
yeah, just
by their own accord, by Jerry Reinsdorf's own decision making.
yeah,
It's like a redo of the rendering that was originally done when they were redoing White Sox Stadium, where they were gonna sell all that land around it to put in, like, make the White Sox a destination so you
yep.
could hang out afterwards and things like that. And he said, no, I want to keep all the money in the park. This time, the whole area is completely developed with like I think there might be a hotel, and then like restaurants and
Oh
bars,
yeah, for
and
sure.
it looks I mean, the renderings are always amazing. I mean, remember how good the current Ranger Stadium looked in the renderings, and what an
Yeah,
actual what
yeah.
reality is.
It was all
The reality is
glass.
it's not the renderings. Holy shit. I
Yeah,
mean,
Texas, the Ranger Stadium, that was all glass and iron, and it's
yeah.
basically looks like an aluminum tool shed from how it actually turned out. But
But I
yeah, so we'll see with that. I think the location itself is the draw as much as anything. Like essentially, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's essentially 20 blocks straight north of the current ballpark because you're at
Yeah,
35th.
yeah,
This is at like
you're still
12th,
16th, I think.
16th. Okay, so
Yeah,
15 blocks, 20 blocks.
yeah.
Just being that in the South Loop, which is one of the hottest areas of the city, a lot of new development. Very accessible to downtown. Not that Sox Park wasn't unaccessible, but it's walkable from downtown.
That's the key part. You're like a tourist, you're in town,
Mhm.
you're staying downtown, it's actually more convenient. It would be more convenient to go to a White Sox game than a Cubs game.
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. I agree, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
if that's what it turns out to be. So I think alone, like like I said, the rendering's fucking beautiful. Like the way it's opened is if you were sitting behind home plate, you would just have the city skyline as your backdrop.
Well, and
Uh,
that's something I've always complained about. It's hilarious that the current White Sox ballpark was built so it faced, at the time, the Robert Taylor home. So
right,
now you
exactly.
see just a vast expanse of sky facing southeast.
Yeah,
Insane that it was not like turned to take advantage of the most beautiful skyline in North America. That always made me laugh.
yeah.
You got to give the Cubs uh, benefit of the doubt because they built their stadium 100 years before that skyline developed the way it is now. So.
Whatever. Always cutting them some slack.
But I did hear a story, and this may or not be true, or maybe I misunderstood it, but I heard Dan Bernstein on 670 The Score mention the whole reason that was facing that direction is because, of course, it had to be built across the street from the original Comiskey Park. But Jerry wanted to keep the same address, the same street address. Like he wanted it at 35th and Shields. And apparently, if you turn the stadium to face downtown, it would change the address. So that was the whole decision was made based on that. So
Well, I
that
guess
just
he
seems,
doesn't care about that address anymore because he's
yeah,
ready to move to the South Loop.
yeah. I mean, that just it sounds absurd to me, but boy, I mean, a lot of the decisions that were made on that stadium were fairly absurd. So
I will say though, like it's very exciting, and I'm I'm for it, but there's a bit of sadness too. Um,
and you are the perfect person to talk about this,
it,
and it's me and baseball fans, Chicago baseball fans, everyone that likes to see new things. This looks awesome on so many levels, but you have such a being a Sox fan, but you have an even deeper connection to the current ballpark.
yeah, I mean, my entire Italian side of the family grew up in Bridgeport.
You are Bridgeport.
Yeah,
You
I
are
am
it.
Bridgeport. I remember uh, going to my uncle lived right on the other side of Armour Park, which is that park and tennis courts that's right by the
Just
stadium.
north, just
Yeah,
north.
so he was
Yeah.
just right there, and I can
Wow.
remember when we would go over there and hang out there, and then the Sox would be playing, and the fireworks would go off. I would just go out to the front porch and like watch it, and you could see the stadium from his front porch, and there's just there is I get it, and I think they should do it. I think it's only makes it's Reinsdorf's legacy.
Yeah.
It also, when it's time, when it does get sold, it's going to make selling the team even easier. But
Well, and that's the biggest thing behind all
yeah,
this, I think, is selling the team eventually, because he has said that in his will that, or at least his family has said they will be selling the team once he dies. So he's leaving a legacy, leaving the city and the franchise in a better space, better mind space than where he got it.
yeah.
I think
But
that's the idea.
when you look at it from like tradition and a neighborhood I mean, so many people who live in I'm not that they can't take a red line over to the new place, but
Right.
I mean, so many people just walk to work there. That's like their summer income, whether they're teachers or whether they just make some extra income. Um, moms who probably don't work all year go over there and work in the summer and make extra money for the family, and then all the different restaurants and things that probably get a lot of visitors after Sox games in, that's all going to be affected, and that's things that don't always get considered.
The question you'd be able to answer better than anyone, or certainly better than I, but I mean, you're wearing the T-shirt right there, Southside. I mean, you're only moving 20 blocks north, but
Yeah,
the
you're still South Side.
South Loop is still very different than Bridgeport. I mean,
Yeah,
you start to lose the Southside identity. That I mean, you're kind of describing it right there.
Uh, I don't know if you do really, because if you walk around over there, I mean, it's not like it's all like super fat, like developed, like to obviously not, since there's 60 acres available, but
But it
but
is,
you're still, to me, you're still south side, you're on the other side of, you're on the south side of Madison.
yeah. I mean, technically for
um
sure, but it's going to have a totally different feel. Like you are in the middle of the city, which is awesome. I mean, that's
yeah, you're not in a
but
neighborhood anymore, which is a completely different feeling. I
and that
mean,
and that's
not,
that's
well, you are in
been
a neighborhood because there's a lot of, but not like a it's like, it's
not the
hard to
neighborhood you've
describe.
been in for 120 years.
No,
I guess
exactly.
that's the
And that's
idea.
really truly a neighborhood.
Mhm.
But it's gonna be more like, it's gonna be a lot like what, when you look at the renderings, if you haven't looked at them, go look at them. It reminds me of exactly what the Ricketts did with Wrigley Field. There's actually, the one rendering has a video screen, a
Oh yeah.
giant screen that faces the plaza.
Oh
So if
sure.
you're
Yeah.
just walking, you can see the game.
Yeah.
So because like when I go to having lived in Wrigleyville when I first moved to the city, and living down the block from the ballpark, that was a neighborhood, and it felt like a neighborhood, and
No, it's
it doesn't
Schaumburg.
feel as much as a neighborhood
It
anymore.
certainly is still, but yeah,
But
it
yeah,
feels much more like Schaumburg than it ever did before,
like,
even 5 years ago.
I'm not kidding. Like, still to this day, when we pull into that area, I just have to do a double take every time.
It's
Like, it's
bizarre.
just so bizarre looking.
Yeah, I
Not
did that when I was back in town this summer for the Guns N' Roses show at Wrigley. Like, I just was walking around, I was walking quickly or trying to get out of there as fast as I could 'cause it was 104 degrees that day, but,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's stunning how different that is. So, yeah, I guess the other question for you that you could answer better than I or most. What is it gonna be harder to get to the ballpark than it is now? People are saying it's easier, but I would think there's so many Sox fans that come from the south suburbs that would just take the Dan Ryan right to the ballpark. Of course, it's still easily accessible by train. It's probably well, it can't be any easierly
Yeah, I
accessible
mean,
than
it's you
this, but
yeah, you get off at Roosevelt, and it's a 4 block walk,
yeah, I mean, I got
so
off at 35th and Shields, and it
yeah.
was a 1 block walk,
Yeah,
so
right, so it's, yeah,
So I'm a
not,
I'm a train goer, I'm a pedestrian, I'm not a driver. I'd probably think about a divvy bike that would all be easier, just certainly walkable from the loop itself to the south loop. So those are positives, but so many people drive. I mean, you've got massive parking lots all around current Sox Park. There would be plenty of parking. It sounds like they'd be doing a below ground parking structure of some sort. There's got to be more than that.
well, there's so much parking in that vicinity anyway. You wouldn't even have to use White Sox parking if you didn't want to.
Is there that much? I mean,
Yeah,
I would
because,
think there'd be a lot less than what you've got now, I guess
well,
is
you just
the
gotta,
idea.
again, you've gotta just walk a little bit
Well,
if you're not opposed to walking, I
I'm
mean,
not the
shit,
other
you're not even that far, like, I mean, I would actually, well, okay, it'd be probably like a 20-minute walk, but you could
yeah.
use the museum campus and still get over there.
Sure. Well, I guess the other part that where I was
And there's
going
a
with
metro train you can get to
well,
there.
where I was going with that question is, like, is this the end of tailgating before Sox games, which is
I
a
say
staple?
100%.
I think that's a huge loss. I mean, that's so different than what you can than, the Cubs experience. You go to bars and go to the ball game, that which is cool in and of itself, but if you want to tailgate before a baseball game, you go to the South Side. That's a whole different experience that is awesome in its own way. So I think that would be going away.
It's over.
Yeah. So there's lots of positives for sure. I think there's still lots of reasons to be a little bit dubious about if this is actually going to happen or how it actually turns out. But there are negatives to consider as well. That's why I think you're uniquely qualified to discuss these.
What I'll say to you is, I'm gonna quote Star Trek, "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few," so
Live long and prosper.
There you go. I mean,
Nerd alert.
like I said, I'm more the tailgating, yay or nay. I don't do it that much.
We did. I think you and I did. It wasn't last year. It was 2 years ago. I think.
Oh well, yeah, with Robin
Briefly.
when we got our sponsorship and I got
Yeah, we were just
completely
drinking beers. We weren't
wasted. I
cooking
fell
food
asleep
or
at the
anything.
game, remember?
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that.
But then I woke up like in a thundering cheer as if I had been awake the whole time.
That's how you do it. But yeah, so I mean, you and I have both enjoyed tailgating. You've done it way more than me. So if you're ready to let that go, I think anybody could. So
Yeah, I mean, I like to like if I go opening day, I think tailgating's fun because you meet up with people and stuff like that. But when we just go on a daily basis, like
yeah, you don't do
or like a
that.
regular like weekday, and plus the food. Here's always been the problem with like tailgating. It's like part of the reason you tailgate is you save money by like bringing your own food and grilling it. But I'd rather just spend the money and eat the food in the park because it's so fucking good. So
Good.
it's like shit. I mean, and again, this year, Smitty, let's be honest. You and I are sitting in fucking suites again because these tickets are going to be dirt fucking cheap.
Yeah.
It's another year of living large on the South
Yeah.
Side.
Well, yeah, I'll be looking forward to that for sure.
But
I don't know. It's just an interesting question. It's an interesting situation.
yeah, I mean, I think what I will say, I think they are going to lose, and I think this is what you were getting at. They are going to lose a little bit of their identity. What made them unique in Chicago?
They're gonna lose
The
that, but they're getting
tailgating,
yeah,
the tailgating, um,
a little bit of the
yeah,
South
a
Side
little bit of the South Side
identity.
neighborhood. You know, you're gonna have to. You can't walk over to Rickabenny's and get that brilliant breaded steak sandwich anymore after the game. You're gonna have to.
Cork
That's
and
not gonna.
Carry.
Yeah, Cork and Carry at the park or any of those bars. But who knows? Maybe Cork and Carry at the park will be Cork and Carry at the park in the new spot. That
They'd
the people who own that have a shit ton of money,
they'd be
so
smart to do that.
that wouldn't
Yes.
be a problem. But like, what is though a lot of those bars that ended up opening up like right outside the park, right after you get through Armor Park, you wonder what. I don't think the neighborhood can support that.
Oh yeah, I think that would be the end. But
Yeah, so a lot of those places are going to end
unless
up closing down.
unless something new happens with the current footprint of Sox Park.
Well, that and that's a whole nother question that seeing as that is state facility owned, what are they going to do with it?
Do the Bears move there?
Yeah, I mean there's still if the Bears move
That
there, they
seems
got to
so
knock the
ridiculous.
whole fucking thing down.
Yeah.
I mean, like so.
Yeah,
Whatever.
that's one thing we didn't really talk about is the fear for the residents of Bridgeport. Like what happens to that whole neighborhood then? Where is that just a desolate place that people don't go other than think about how many people were going there for Sox games, what a staple that's been for again 120 plus years. Now it's would be radically different. So
Yeah, I that's what I was like. That's what I was alluding to. Like, it's gonna affect the infrastructure of that entire neighborhood if they do move. There are going to be restaurants. I mean, Rick and Benny's will not be one of them because they're like they've been nationally covered, so people like go out of
yeah.
the way to go there. But um, there are other restaurants there that I'm sure are going to just go out of business because some of their income, a portion of their income is because of White Sox games. So
Well, it certainly was a well-timed announcement considering how negative the news has been for 2, 3 years, to have a positive note, how excited people got about potential new stadium in the South Loop. And of course, this wouldn't be until 2029. Is that
yeah, I
the
believe that's
earliest?
correct. Or 2029. So I
Because your
mean,
lease runs through 2028 in your current
yeah,
ballpark. So yeah, we're talking way down the road. Well, 5 years isn't all that far, but yeah, I was just thinking 20 years ago, you and I were working in the loop, Jackson and Wells. we went to plenty of Sox games. We would just head right down, the red line, or jump in your car and drive down. How cool to be working in the loop, just walking to a fucking game in the South Loop right there. But
I know.
I don't know how many people actually work in the loop anymore. I mean, the whole world has shifted since then, so maybe it's not as
That
big of a deal.
building's still running. It's open. There's people in it. Our old building.
Oh,
So
yeah, I go by it all the time. It's right by Union Station, so I check
yeah.
every time I come into the city, I'm going by it, but
But like I was saying to you a couple weekends ago, like I could basically walk. I mean, it'd be a little bit of a walk, but I could walk. I could walk there all the way
from
from
you,
the
yeah,
office.
in Wicker Park. Oh, your
Yeah,
office. Yeah, I
yeah.
forget. Are you on Michigan?
I'm on Clark, Clark in Illinois.
Oh, you're
So
straight south right
yeah.
there.
So
Well, I think it's gonna be fun to talk about for the next 5 years.
yeah, I'm sure there'll be. It's all like cupcakes and rainbows right now,
Yeah,
but
there's
I'm
gonna be
sure there'll be plenty of drama involved.
a lot of twists and turns as we get into how this is financed, to get into the nitty-gritty details of how that all works. I do wanna remind you, I had this written down for the current Sox Park deal. What a sweetheart deal that was, and how infuriating it is to anyone that's not a Sox fan probably, but for the first 10 years, the White Sox didn't have to pay rent if the
Yeah, I
attendance was
mean,
below 1.2 million.
yeah, that makes sense, though. You
So they
wouldn't
paid
put a good
nothing
team
for
on
that
the
stadium.
field.
So they were actually incentivized to not have a good team, like,
Yeah,
or not be interesting to the fans.
I was annoyed by that when that news came out, um, because I did think that he continued to put mediocre product on the field.
Well, it explains a lot.
I mean, they let's see, was 10-year 91, yeah, to two, so that's 91 to 2001. But they did have a really good team in 94, but the strike happened. So
Well, then, well, yeah, that changed a lot of things, I'm sure, but, um, you had a good team in 2001.
yeah, but that was on the cusp of it. That was the last. So I guess he
Mm.
didn't. I guess he didn't totally tank. Was 97 was what, the white flag?
You tell me,
I can't
Southside
remember
boy.
now. Yeah, Southside boy, I can't remember. I think 97 was the white flag.
You do currently still just pay 1.5 million in annual rent for the stadium. So,
He's a negotiator.
well, that makes me wonder, like, what this new deal is going to look like. I mean, maybe he doesn't care because he will be selling it. He's only trying to prop up the value to and increase his legacy. But
But don't you think the sale of the team would hold even more value if he actually owned the ballpark?
yeah, and that's certainly, yeah, it would absolutely, yeah, and
And,
that's where you see the value of the Cubs has skyrocketed. It was going to anyway, but it doubled just because it's a franchise and they own the ballpark
that's why
outright.
I think I feel that the comment of not funded by tax dollars is the idea that he's actually going to he has the money to do it, that they're
Does
actually
he
going to
though?
he does. Yeah.
Okay,
They're going to own the stadium. That's what I think.
that's a
That
lot.
and
That
that would be
this
his
is
and that would be his legacy.
this is
If he
multiple
actually owns.
billions of dollars we're talking about now with the land and the building and the entertainment district that would be adjacent
But you
on the.
figure he owns the stadium, and obviously then I'm sure you could work out something where like maybe he owns the stadium, but it's not like the Ricketts who bought everything up around him and then someone else
Yeah,
manages the commercial side of it. So whatever. I don't want to get into that. That
yeah,
this
that's
podcast.
we've got
Let's
5 years to talk about that.
and let's
We've
talk about baseball. Let's keep talking about baseball.
Word Hole Media.